is the name of our show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Large Glass. I'm Todd.
I'm Terri.
And I hope to God you can hear us because there are so many times we turn this thing on and you guys are so good about letting us know. But I think technologically we're good. How's it going? This is our weekly broadcast where we bring you a new art-related theme or artist to talk about in the chat. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. It's episode 53 tonight.
53. Wait, Mom's here, of course, and there's Ben. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for showing up. I loved doing Alan Wexler last week.
Oh, yes. And plus we were thinking about it all week long.
Right.
Yes.
And we hope you were too. But, you know, we've had some conversations on and off through social media and whatnot with Alan after the show. And we all just really felt like it was a good time. There's Jess Park. Hi.
Hey.
Nice to see you. Looking forward to Friday night's thing. But yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And there's just so much. We have so much to talk about tonight. There's a lot of changes going on. There's a lot of things
There's some cool contests coming up. Well,
Yeah.
there's one cool contest coming up.
And it's entirely Terri's idea, so we'll talk about that. But first, we should have our beverage.
We should.
So where's tonight's artist from?
Our artist tonight is in New York. She lives there. She works there.
Yep.
So
we have two beers tonight from New York, and these are craft beers. Our first one is by Industrial Arts Brewing Company. It is called Wrench. It's got a nice pink and silver can. I kind of like that.
Cool.
There's John Park. How's it going, John?
Hey.
Nice to see you. So we've got the Wrench. I'm going to be having the Wrench, and the Wrench is in fact an IPA, lush and tropical zest. So we'll see how that goes. And Terri, of course, as per the usual, has already opened hers. But she is having the Common Roots Brewing Company, which is located in New York as well. They're from South Glen Falls, New York. And she's having the Citra. Now, of course, it's a little bit green, so it looks a little funky on the screen. But I'll pour for you. Let us know what you're drinking in the chat.
yeah.
We'd love to know.
Guess we can't do the ASMR with this because
Well,
it's beer and the glass is kind of
the beer never works
big.
well.
It never works well. Usually wine works really well.
Wine's a great ASMR.
Yeah.
But tonight we're going beer. I like a cloudy IPA. There's 63. Oh, 63 likes the Wrench. Oh, good. And
Ooh.
Boo Jazz is here.
Hey, hey.
Nice to see you. We got some Boo Jazz stuff to talk about tonight
we do have
as
some
well.
Boo Jazz stuff to talk about. Yeah.
Anyway, episode 53.
Episode
Still going strong. Now, remember, this is not we haven't crossed the year mark yet, even though we've got 53 weeks in, technically. Our 1 year anniversary is coming up on September 21,
Yes.
correct?
Well, our official 1 year anniversary is actually the 22nd, but the 21st we're going to be celebrating.
It's going to be a really cool show. We're putting together some stuff with old clips in it and making some little montagey things.
Yeah.
So definitely try to tune in for that if you can. Ben Hagenbush is drinking a Rosenberg iced tea.
Yep.
Boo Jazz is having Suntory Toki whiskey.
Ooh,
And I think that probably, that sounds really good, actually.
that does.
Hang on, I'm going to go get some whiskey.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
woo.
Cheers, everybody. Nice to see you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh, that's good.
Is it good?
Yeah, the Wrench is good.
Ooh, it is a cloudy
It's a
IPA there.
Nice little
Look at that.
hazy thing going on. So
So Todd put a microphone here because I'm such a low talker. So I'm probably going to hit it at some point tonight with my beer glass. I'm going to be very conscientious of the space.
because if you have headphones on and she hits that thing, you're gonna have a problem.
Just a heads up.
Ooh, Carolyn Thau is here. We haven't
Hey,
seen you in a
Carolyn.
while. Welcome back, Carolyn. Nice to see you. Cheers to you. I rode past Whittemore today and I was thinking about you. So nice to see you. So tell us about this contest. What's going on?
Well, we're going to be doing a contest on Instagram on Thursdays, and the name of it is called Details. We thought of it mostly because Ang's birthday was this week, and I was looking at the paintings. I love Ang's work. I love the details. I love the filigree and the lace and the jewels and all that stuff. and I was getting in really close to some of his paintings, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just put a little tiny clip of a painting and have the first person to accurately identify the artist in the title, they win something from the large glass.
And can I tell them what they win?
You can tell them. Why, tell them what they'll win, Todd.
I'll tell them what they win, Terry. Mom says you sound so much better. Thanks,
good.
Mom, because that mic placement, I really worked hard on that.
He did.
And Carolyn just subscribed again at Tier 1, and she's reminding us that she was here last week.
Oh.
So that's my bad.
That's our bad.
I'm old and decrepit.
We're 53 episodes. We're starting to get a little foggy.
I'm almost 53 years old, so I'm a little foggy.
No, you're not yet.
Anyway, what we did was we're so excited about this. We're having an enamel pin made. It's 1.5 inches tall, and it's going to be a limited edition yearly thing that we do. So each year we will produce a new enamel pin. Now that enamel pin, of course, is going to emulate a large glass of something like a cocktail. The first one that we're going to start out, of course, with is a nice big pint of beer. And we're only ordering 50 of these things.
Limited edition.
Right? So with 50 of those available, that's just enough to give those away for the Details contest on Instagram. But we'll also have them up for sale on our website, which is something else I want to talk about briefly before we get too far into the show. But it's going to be exciting. And then you can collect them. So we're planning on being around for a long time. We're going to make a lot of these things. I think they're going to be fun.
I think it's going to be awesome. And can you imagine them on a lapel? It's like a bar on the lapel of your jacket. How cool is that?
I'm gonna wear a sash.
Oh yeah, you
and I'll
can
put
do
them
a
all on the
sash.
sash.
You could do the back spread. Oh my God, you can get a sleeve, like a tattoo, and it's got all of our cool, funky pins on it. Man. Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Now, speaking of websites, we have under the works, under the hood, in the works right now, a brand new website actually. So we have acquired thelargeglass.org. We are planning on actually going the 501c3 route. So we are going to be a nonprofit in the near future. So we're really excited about that. And that website is actually going to help to sort of solidify and define all of those things, as well as offer merchandise and all of our back videos. So it's going to be a new central hub. It's not quite ready just yet, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Maybe we'll have a launch.
We should have a launch.
We should have a launch.
Launch to be, date to be determined, but in the very near future. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about really quickly is we got a really nice gift from one of our followers in the chat who you're all used to seeing, and that's Boo Jazz. So Boo Jazz sent us this beautiful set of 12 postcards of his work. Now, Boo Jazz's real name in real life, and I'm going to give you that because you're going to find out anyway, but Boo Jazz's real name is Michael Foster. And Michael Foster has a website called boojazz.com. And somewhere in here, I have that to pop up on the screen. I just can't remember where I put it. There it is, boojazz.com. He is, he does art direction, graphic design. He does digital illustration. He covers a lot of ground, and I love these postcards. You can buy these on his website. They're really gorgeous. And so check him out. Head over to his website and see what he does. He's got a lot of interesting stuff going on. He was once asked by Ariana Huffington to blog for her for the Huffington Post. So he's a very versatile person, and we met them being Michael and Jamie Foster, at a gallery opening right here in Clinton several years ago. And really just enjoyed their company, and then they went back to Chicago, and we never saw them again, but they are in touch with us on a regular basis through social media, and that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for those, Michael, and you guys should go check him out for sure. Anyway, what else do we got to thank a supporter. We got a lot to. Then we got to get to our artist tonight, who is Barbara Friedman, by the way, which I'm really excited about.
So excited. She's one of those artists where when we were loading up the images in our little queue, it's overloaded with her work because you can't say no to any of them. So we have lots to talk about. So we'll get there.
Yeah, we will. And you know, the biggest problem here, and this is not a problem, but I would say the problem with Barbara Friedman is there's just so much work.
There's so much work. There's so much,
And
so
it's-
much good stuff.
Right?
So,
And it's like
yeah.
you're trying to pick through this stuff, and it's like, well, what are we going to do here? We've got like 60 pieces loaded up to show.
I felt that way about the past couple artists.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt that way about Lambrix. So I felt that way about Pam Glick, and she is another artist of the highest caliber.
Yeah.
So I'm like really excited to
Yeah,
talk
we've
about
had
her
some.
tonight.
I've just been really excited about, you know, the shows we've been doing, and I don't want to toot my own horn here, but it is really quite good. Let's take a look.
We're so good. Sorry. Okay.
All right.
Let's thank a supporter.
You want to thank a supporter?
Oh, let's thank a supporter.
The supporter we're thanking tonight is Mr. Nick Lovegrove. Nick, thank you so much. Nick Lovegrove is a huge supporter in so many ways. Number one, just talking to him and listening to him talk about ideas, whether it's around design or whether it's just around productivity or whether it's around cycling. I actually ride my bike with Nick, and we spend time talking about all kinds of stuff. Sometimes it's just about color. But Nick is a great supporter, and he he might be here watching in the background. Nick's more of a lurker. He doesn't work in the chat too much. Thanks to you, Nick. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. So, what else are we doing? Oh, wait, there's boojazz.com. You know, those lower thirds just sneak in on me like
Just to
that.
remind you.
Just to remind you, boojazz.com, which Michael says is a combination. The name is a combination of his and Jamie's nicknames.
Aw,
So that's cool.
that is cool.
All right. Let's see. Let's get right to. Should we do news?
Let's do news.
All right. I'm going to get to the news.
I will say the news is going to be a surprise to me. He wouldn't tell me what the news was about tonight.
That's because the
So
news tonight
I
sort
get to
of.
watch it with you guys. I'm not quite sure what's
The news sort of hits close to home for you.
Okay.
I only have one thing to talk about, and in the true fashion of my news things, it's a downer.
Is it a downer?
It's a downer.
Oh, no.
It's a downer. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, so the news tonight is actually kind of a bummer. And as we all prepare for tomorrow's onslaught of the rainstorm that's coming as a result of Hurricane Ida, some pretty bad stuff happened along its path. Now, as you know, it ran smack into New Orleans. But unlike Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans did fare better than it did in Katrina. However, let's pull these up. However, this building, which really looks like a nondescript building that, you know, you wouldn't even care about, this building had something happen to it. Now, here's the thing about this building. It's known as the Karmofsky Shop. And the Karmofsky Shop in New Orleans actually is known as the second home of Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong, before he ever even got started in music, lived in this very building. And the Karmofsky family was a family of tailors. They were very well known and respected in the New Orleans area. They took him in, he did work for them, but he also was very interested in music and very talented. So one of the Karmofskys, I believe it was, I forget his first name now, so I apologize about that. But the Karmofskys lent Louis Armstrong the money to buy, and let's just have a quick pic of Louis Armstrong here. And this is not his first coronet that you see in his hands here, but the Karmofskys lent him the money to buy his first coronet, which you're seeing on the screen right now. That's really, really a huge moment, okay? So this family that ran this tailor shop were the ones that not only encouraged him, but sent him on his way to become the great musician that he was. Okay, well, unfortunately, and then the building kind of fell into disrepair. There have been lots of plans to take that building and revitalize it and turn it into the landmark that it should be, right? But unfortunately, Hurricane Ida completely demolished it, and the building now lays in complete ruin. It's a pile of bricks. It's a very sad story. This is it from an aerial view, and you know, the hurricane did some really significant damage, and in this case, a real piece of history was lost here. But I love the story of how he lived in this family tailor's business. And, you know, wound up getting the money for his first coronet from them.
Wow.
It's a beautiful story. And it's a shame that this building actually had to be lost. If it had been restored 10 years ago,
Yes.
it probably would have withstood
Probably.
the damage. So so that's where we are with that. But so that is tonight's
Art news.
that's tonight's art news. We lost the Karmovsky building. Anyway, let's pop back over to the two of us.
Bam.
There we are. Let's do some birthdays real quick because it's getting late.
Birthdays. That's always a great transition.
Yeah, we'll get
Let's-
into something a little bit
Lighten
happier
up the
here.
mood a little bit.
Okay, so
Okay, so birthdays. So starting off with Yasuo Koniyoshi. He is way ahead of his time. He was born on September 1st in 1893. He was he was into expressionism, photographer, painter, printmaker. He explored a lot of themes that people today explore in some of his artwork. So happy birthday to him.
Christina McKinnon is here. Hey, I hope you have a
Hi.
good connection. I hope you managed to hang out.
Yes, I hope so too.
Nice to see you.
Good to
Love
see
what
ya.
you've been working on lately.
Yes,
So
beautiful. So happy birthday.
happy birthday, not to you, Christina, but when your birthday comes,
Well, she's in March, so I remember. Okay.
How the hell do you remember
I'm
that?
a savant with the birthdays.
She really is.
You know, I'm terrible with math. Numbers don't do well with me, but for some reason I remember birth dates, like significant dates.
Christina, is your birthday in March? Let's just confirm.
It is.
All right, who do we have here?
Okay, this is Tadeo Sukari. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
He won't be offended.
He won't be offended. He was born a long time ago. September 1st, 1529.
Wow.
Yes, he's an Italian fresco painter. So, happy birthday to him.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on, this is Romero Bearden. He was born on the 2nd of September in 1911. The one thing I love about birthdays is that you learn about artists. And for me, like doing this for the past year, I've learned so much about artists just based on doing a little bit of research on them for their birthday. He's fascinating. He started off, he had a professional ball career, baseball, African American. He started off playing baseball, and then I believe it was the athletics. He was offered a position to play baseball,
pro ball,
but the manager that was trying to recruit him said he'd have to try to pass for white, and he refused. He didn't want to refuse his identity.
Good for him.
Good for him. He went into the U.S. Army, and then after the Army, he went on to go ahead and paint and collage. So he was very big with that. He also worked as a caseworker in the 1930s. So very well-rounded individual, had a lot of life experience. I love his work. September 2nd, 1911. That's his birthday. Happy birthday.
All right, happy birthday. Who do we got here?
This is Joseph Wright. He was born on September 3rd, 1734. He's an English painter, mostly painted landscapes, portraits. He used chiaroscuro in a way, but it was a little bit more focused on the spotlight effect, which is known as something I'm going to mispronounce, but you're probably going to correct me. Tenebrism?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's tenebrism. Yeah.
Tenebrism. So it's the same kind of thing as chiaroscuro, but it more focuses on that direct angle of light to perform that spotlight effect. So that's something that he was known for. It created a lot of drama.
And you know, one of the things Terri just said about learning about these artists as we go, you know, I mean, it's like sometimes when we do the birthdays, we do so many of them and they go so quickly. It's like, it's a really good idea sometimes. If you see an image on these birthdays that you kind of, you know, feel something for, go back and look some of these artists up, because I'm only putting one image in tonight, but Joseph Wright's paintings and the use of light in those paintings is just like, some of them will blow your head off. They're absolutely incredible. So for what it's worth, it's definitely worth looking into. And we're moving on. Who do we have here?
This is Louis Sullivan.
Okay.
He was born on September 3rd, 1856. He's an American architect. He created more than 100 buildings in various cities throughout the United States, including New York and Chicago and Philadelphia. He's known as the father of skyscrapers. So happy birthday to him.
Wow, that's quite a
title.
Noteworthy title.
Yeah.
I'm the father of skyscrapers.
I'm the granddaddy of skyscrapers.
Skyscraper.
Yes.
I am your father.
He was actually Frank Lloyd Wright's mentor.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So the things you learn.
I love this image. I love this image. Oscar Schlemmer.
Yes, this is Oscar Schlemmer.
It's like his head is in a bell jar. That's a thing for me. Go ahead.
It is.
Okay.
So he was born on September 4th, 1888. He was a painter, sculptor, designer, choreography. He was German. He comes from the Bauhaus School with many other famous artists like Kandinsky. And so happy birthday to him.
Happy birthday, Oscar. Moving on. Look at this intense.
I don't think I've seen this painting.
Caspar David
Friedrich. He's a 19th century German romantic. He was born on September 5th, 1774. Also known for painting landscapes. He had allegorical themes in his work, so happy birthday to him.
We're moving on. And one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Mr. Werner Herzog.
He was born on September 5th, 1942, also German.
One of my favorite directors.
Author, actor, screenwriter, film director. I believe he was involved in your favorite movie of all time, Fitzcarraldo.
Which happens to be the image that I pulled up.
How did I know?
This is one of my favorite movies of all time.
He always, that's like his big line with people. Have you seen Fitzcarraldo? So, right?
Come on, there's nothing like it. I even put a second image in there.
Mandalorian was another one of his films.
The what?
Mandalorian. He had a hand in that.
He did?
He did.
Oh, that's right. He did.
He did.
That's right.
Yep. So he's current. Grizzly Man. He has many
Grizzly
credits
Man
behind his name.
White Diamond. There's so many. Fitzcarraldo's a beautiful movie. If you have not seen it, Klaus Kinski is just awesome in this. So definitely check that out. Yep. Moving on. We have one more. Another one of my favorites.
This is Elizabeth Murray. She was born on September 6th, 1940. American artist. She's a painter, printmaker. She was known mostly for her three-dimensional
shaped canvases.
So, yeah, she was fantastic.
Always loved her work.
Happy birthday to her. She died way too young.
She really did.
Yeah.
She really did.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for birthdays tonight. So we're going to shut that down, and we are going to move back over. We got to talk about really quickly about support.
Yes.
And then we're going to move right into Barbara's work because we are just, I feel like we're dragging here. It's only 8:23. We got time.
23.
How to support us. Let's see. I go into this every week and I talk about getting to 200 followers. I talk about the Susan Stillman painting that we're giving away, which I'm really excited about.
We're getting closer.
So, let's first of all, can we pull up that Susan Stillman painting? There it is. Susan has donated this painting to us. Now, most of you that are out there know this already, but we are creeping towards 200. We're at 164 followers right now. If every single one of you grabbed a friend and said, hey, just jump on Twitch and, follow this channel. What's good about that is even if they don't intend to watch, they're going to get a reminder to watch whenever we go online, and maybe they'll pop in and see something that they like. So when we get to 200, we're giving this away on the show. You could be the lucky winner of that. Mm-hmm. And also, as I always say, we are on Patreon. Now, we have got, I don't know why those are turning off, but we have got, is that going to stay on now? It's going to stay on. We have got an event coming up this Friday night. This Friday night at 8 p.m. for our patrons, we are going to be doing a special roundtable discussion, private broadcast on what makes a work of art bad. We're bringing in our very own I Hate Username 67, who is Glenn Lavertu, as a panel moderator. Mm-hmm. And it'll be a live discussion with everybody. So this is going to be fun because we're bringing in the works of artists that you may not think are bad, but some people do. Some people are going to bring work to the table.
Yes.
For those of you that are patrons, there's going to be an email going out tomorrow talking about all of the details for getting logged into that and watching that. Now, if you'd like to be part of that, you can go to patreon.com/thelargeglass, separated by underscores, and you can become a patron. And you will be in on that discussion, and you will do a great thing in supporting our show. So that is that. We're going to close all that out. And none of that seems to want to work well, but that's okay. Let's get talking about Barbara Friedman.
Yes, let's.
All right. Do you want to do the introduction?
Excited. I certainly can. So, Barbara Friedman. She's another one of those artists I don't know where to start with, so I'll just start at the beginning.
All right.
She's a New York-based artist. She lives and works in the financial district down by the World Trade Center with her husband right now. She has a bachelor's degree, 1976, from Beloit College in Wisconsin. She has a BFA in 1979 from RISD, and she also has an MFA in 1983, University of California at Berkeley.
We are totally hitting my alums.
Yeah.
That we're doing the RISD thing. We've got Barbara Friedman.
Yeah.
We had Alan Wexler.
Yeah.
We had Pam Glick.
Yes.
I mean, we're just ticking off our.
We really
we're
are.
The audience is gonna think I'm biased.
They might. Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. So she's also a teacher at Pace University. She's a professor at art. She's won numerous honors and awards. She's been featured all over the place: MTV, Irish Times, Art in America, New York Times Book Review, New York Sun, San Francisco MoMA, Yale University, Franklin Furnace, you name it. If it's art, she's probably been in it. Numerous group exhibits, I think 30 solo shows. So has quite an impressive resume. So Barbara Friedman's who we're talking about tonight.
Yes, and we're excited about that.
We are so excited.
I met Barbara at a show in Jersey City. I don't even remember the year. I'm going to say 2017 or 2018. Maybe 2016 now. Time flies. I believe that show was curated by Enrico Gomez. Fantastic show of work. Yeah. And you're trying to find it, aren't you?
I am, but there's so much here.
She's shown in so many places. It's really hard to pick it up on. But we had a little conversation about the work that was in the show. It was really quite nice and great show of work. And I got really excited about her paintings from that point on. And we friended on Facebook, so I was able to kind of keep like a little bookmark in that page, which I enjoyed. So we're gonna. Like we said before, there's so much work to go through.
There's so much work to go through.
And the first thing I want to make sure that I tell you about is that you can go to barbarafriedmanpaintings.com and see how she's laid that out chronologically and according to various like sort of themed projects that she's worked her way through. And you'll quickly realize that if we had all that work in our slideshow, which we sort of do, we'd never be able to cover it all. So we're going to kind of touch on things and talk about key points in this. And then we're going to leave it to you to go back through and check this out. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact and you're not live with us tonight, I will put all of those websites down in the comments. You'll be able to see those down there. So just drop down to there and hit those links and you can go see that stuff as well. So where do you want to start?
Well, I guess we're going to start with this painting right here.
Got this piece right here. Awesome.
It was hard to think of some kind of order to put them in because there's so many different themes that she focuses on. Some of them are related. Most of them are related. But in determining what to begin with,
well, she's
tricky.
As a painter, Barbara really has this, she visits, she has a lot of inspirations that inform these works. And her painterliness is certainly someplace we can start, right? And I love some of these more sort of landscape scenes that she's got that are sort of blurred. They definitely have this interesting sense of space, this dreamlike landscape. So we're going to begin there. But the rabbit hole we're about to go down is really going to be crazy. Okay, so consider from point A to point B, there's a great distance here, okay? And we're gonna see a lot of different stuff along the way. So yeah, so we just started pulling up some images to kind of set the mood,
Okay.
right? So
just to give you an idea where we're at, and I will say her website's gorgeous. It has most of her work. The piece that we're looking at right now is called Station. It was painted in 2007. It's about 36 by 84 inches. It's oil on linen.
it's a monster.
It's a monster. And this is beautiful. The thing I like about starting here is that it...
Go ahead.
Well, it's your basic scene. Of course, it strays from a typical landscape figure painting because she's painting people at a station. You got some figures going on there. You see some blur, so it seems to capture some motion in there. You got these really great highlights of color that bring your eye all over the place.
Something I don't typically do on this show. I do it once in a while,
Yes.
but I was never that, especially when I teach. I'm never that critiquer that always constantly references other artists all the time.
Yes.
Right. And I think there is some value in that, but I don't think that should be the only angle we talk about work from, because this stands on its own. And the reference I want to make here, I'm going to make a couple of those references tonight.
Yep.
But the reference we're going to make here is a reference that I didn't even tell you I was going to make, because you think I'm going to say Gerhard Richter.
I do.
I'm not going to say Gerhard Richter.
Okay.
63 says, don't say Richter.
Right.
I'm not going to say Richter.
You can't miss that. And that's the one thing about Friedman's work. We're going to see a lot of deference to other different artists. You're going to see a lot of tradition in her artwork, but then you see her move on from it, and it really becomes her own thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The artist I'm going to talk about tonight, and I have to describe the work because this is not something that we're going to have at the ready, and I certainly can't pull it up, is an artist named Cynthia Lawson. Cynthia Lawson's a photographer, and she works across a variety of media. I don't want to just call her a photographer, but I remember seeing a piece of hers that was one of the most, it blew my head off when I saw this piece. It was a photograph of a subway scene like the one you're seeing here, and it was displayed on a massive flat panel monitor, right? And okay, so I thought, I'm standing there looking at this image, and there's like 4 or 5 people standing on a subway platform, and I'm viewing a photo on a TV screen, which, okay, it's not printed in the traditional way, and there it is. But then I realized, so I moved around the show a little bit, and then I came back to this piece, and I looked at it again, and I could swear it had changed. There were no longer 5 people on the screen, but there might have been 4, and I can't remember exactly how it changed, right? But it had changed. And here was the beautiful thing about that, is that image, what she had done to create that is I wasn't looking at a photo, I was looking at a video, but it was a video made from 2 stills that had been layered on top of each other and cross-faded over about 20 minutes time.
Oh.
So the transition from one image to the other happened so slowly that it almost didn't happen. Now, if you consider Barbara Friedman's painting here and the way in which the blur sort of, it does a number of things. And 63 is right when we say, don't say Richter. Well, Richter's certainly there, but I think we can also extract some other things. And you had mentioned the movement, right? But that movement is not the movement of a train car going by. That movement is not the movement of the people on the platform. That blur is more psychological. And to me, it's not as evident as a blur should be, because it seems to go in both directions, right? It's not the blur we expect. So it's a strange blur to me. It reminds me of Cynthia Lawson. And I think that that's, an interesting reference. I mean, not that I'm calling my own reference interesting, but I think that's one worth looking at here. Anyway, we can't stay on one image this long.
We can't.
We've got hundreds. We're going to cruise through some of these.
So we're going to cruise through some of these. And when you're looking at her website, because we have categorized quite a few, she did a series called In Passing, and that's where we're pulling the first couple images from. And you're going to see some similarities between some of these images. This is another one that has the blur.
Right.
It's another kind of landscape, kind of still life.
I'm just gonna move a little bit, because
he's just gonna kind of give you a
in
glimpse
passing,
of that.
and we look at some of these.
Right. We're gonna pass through some of that.
I didn't mean it like that, but I meant
sorry.
like as the name suggests, in passing, there's this reference to this kind of movement, usually through some kind of like, we're thinking about cars, we're thinking about trains. There's this kind of...
Thinking of transience, we're thinking of not lingering too long. There are things that maybe you don't notice from day to day, but once you see it, she caught it in a split second to just freeze it, but it's not frozen. So
right.
So we're passing by some of these images.
Ben's saying he really loves how she blends the colors as well as doing the blur effect. Yeah, and there's this, 63 mentions Gerhard Richter, right? And so I somewhere in this massively long list, just so everybody, I mean, some of us know Richter, right? But let's just pull up a Richter. Oh my God. This is reasons to not have 400 images in here. So this is a Gerhard Richter painting of some flowers on a table. And you can see how it was hyper-realistically painted at first, and then this blur motion was applied. No, it's totally fine, 63. I actually think it's a great, reference, but a reference I think a lot of people have made in terms of Barbara Friedman's work in the past. And I'm always one to say, okay, that's a cool reference. Let's move on though. Let's see what else we can kind of pull out of this, right? So, so this is just so everybody can kind of become acquainted with what that sort of means. But, we get back to this, and I think there's actually a little bit more going on here, right? Especially in terms of color. Like there's a vibrancy in Barbara's work that I feel like might not be there in Richter's work. For what it's worth. Yeah. All right, so, there's a few more from that series in here that we could kind of just look at quickly. I kind of like moving through these because it's like the car is going by us, the train is going by us.
Well, if we pause on this one for a minute, because she is capturing, motion and the transience of the moment, and it's happening quickly. But I love how she's allowing some of the materials to just naturally do what they do. Like we see some of the staining on the canvas, like the modeling of the spirits with the oil paints. And it kind of resembles the elements as well. It resembles that misty, rainy feeling to it. So there's a isolation in some of these pictures. There's a loneliness. So she's capturing all these psychological attributes in her work. But these were beautiful. I thought that this whole series was something more concrete than some of her other series, and we're going to see that in a little bit.
Yeah, so things begin to sort of unfold, or not unfold, but they sort of start to come apart a little bit in the ones that are coming up. There's a certain kind of ease that these paintings sort of allow us to sort of look at them with. There's a beautifulness to the way they're painted. Beautifulness? Did I just say the word beautifulness?
You did. That's okay.
All right, I'm done.
There's a beautifulity to them.
Unravel. 63 is going to interpret for me tonight.
That's very good.
Buja says, even though the paintings show motion, I feel as if the viewer is stuck in time.
Yes.
It's time, and the environment is trying to move on, even if the viewer can't. Oh, that's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Just in time, not its time. Yeah, I like that.
I do like that.
And that's the kind of thing about In Passing, if you think about the name of the series, and we think about relativity, there's this notion of, well, what's passing what?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting way of looking at it, especially from the standpoint of the viewer and an image, which is a static thing, and there's this relationship set up between where I'm supposed to be and where that image is, so.
Yep. The painterly quality too, I just want to go back to that. If this were captured in a photograph, it wouldn't have the same kind of drive, because she's able to, she uses the colors and the vibrancy in her palette to kind of hook us in a little bit more than a picture. There's something more connected to it. So
can we start to get a little bit more?
Let's get a little
Can I do this
bit
one?
more. Yeah.
All right. So now, and of course, I can't help but make the reference back to Pam Glick from 2 weeks ago because of all of the references to Niagara.
Falls,
So hi, Pam, if you're here, this one's for you. I've got one in here for several people. I've got one for my mom. I've got a painting in here for you. And Barbara Friedman has a variety of things that we can pull for all of our viewers. But I think that now we're really starting to, and I cannot help but continue to use the word dreamscape. And that's going to come up a couple of times. And Christina says lots of subtleties.
Yeah.
Mom's like, wow. There's if we think about that motion and the blur and then the surreal nature of this, the dreamscape comes up. Now, what series is this from?
So this is from, I have the actual painting pulled up right now. So I also like her use of titles. One thing that we're going to see with her is her sense of humor come through in some of these paintings and the titles. So this one's actually called Stroll. It was painted in 2010. It's 27 by 36 inches, oil on linen. This is from her series Overlook Paintings. And then this whole series actually focuses on, one thing I feel like she does is she focuses on anxieties and fears and things that we have recurring nightmares about.
Oh my God, I'm just getting started. I love,
I know. But that's what this is from.
Okay, so this Overlook series, I mean, and there's a few words that I want to sort of employ here as we go forward, and dreamscape was one of them. Edge is another one, right? And so you look at a painting like this, or you look at a painting like this, and we start to sort of see, or you look at a painting like this, and there are these recurring elements in this work that, to me, really start to become quite interesting, right? I mean, look at this one, right? And so I'm going to bounce back and forth between these rather than just sit on one for too long, because I really want to sort of start to sort of create.
Get into her mood.
I want to create a little casserole.
Yes.
I want all these things to sort of blend together.
Yeah.
But I love this kind of dreamscape in the background, and then this object figure relationship in the foreground that sits on top. The figures look into the abyss, right? They're staring into the abyss. They stare into the abyss here. They're sort of on the edge of the abyss here. And I got, you always start our talks about an artist. You talk about their backgrounds and what gave them inspiration. What happened here?
I couldn't find anything. So I did. I looked hard. I looked real hard. I could not find anything on her first, and I probably could have asked her. I probably could have reached out and talked to her, but I like to come across things very organically.
And the work should speak for itself.
The work should speak for itself. But I'm not quite sure where her earliest influence is from. There is a lot of psychology behind her paintings. One of her series is actually the German word for nightmares, which we're going to get into in just a little bit as well. But there's a couple of things that I saw her or heard her talk about, or read about her talking about in some of her current influences. And one of them is she does live down in the World Trade Center district. And she did say 9/11 affected her deeply. And she has a lot of anxiety surrounding that and just in general. And these tend to translate into some of these paintings that she's doing. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what her childhood brought about, and sometimes you don't always find that, like if I look back on Goya or if we look back on Van Gogh, we can't quite tell what their earliest childhood experiences were.
Right. And and first of all, if you were in New York, 9/11 affected you. I mean, 9/11 affected everyone deeply.
Yeah.
If you were in New York, there's a whole different level of depth to that affectedness, number one. And then, I can't help, I'm looking up on my slideshow here and I see this.
Yeah.
Right. And of course there's that beautiful iconic image of that amazing hero pilot that saved all those people when he landed on the Hudson River and they were all standing on the wings of the plane.
Yeah.
Sully. Right.
Yep.
There's that. But then there's also the other implication when you consider the verticality of this image and the plane that's in this image and all the people that are standing on the wings. There's an absolute nightmarish kind of implication here. Now I forget
it's almost Hitchcockian too. You've seen movies where people were on on the wings of a plane and stuff like that. It's this very allegorical, surreal, creepy, dreamy kind of thing. But these paintings are just so fantastic.
63 says, yeah, no 9/11 there. Right, right, exactly. But it kind of fuses two things, right?
Yeah.
And so if I think about Sully, the pilot, and the landing on the Hudson River, right? And those people standing on the wings. And then I also think about that other event and how close in proximity those two things happened to one another. One was one of total heroicism and one was one of total tragedy. And it's almost like those two worlds come together, right? Niagara, like we just saw a minute ago, this beautiful, magical place. But these people are walking on the edge of that thing
and
with
not
strollers.
To mention, they're oblivious, right? They're completely walking along oblivious. We saw that with the people standing on that overlook, and they're just, it's horrifying to look at for us. We see that and we feel these emotions of anxiety and oh my God, but they seem at ease and are just totally clueless of the danger that they're in.
Yeah, and 63 says, but this one is darker, right? And I would have to agree.
Yeah.
Because this plane is actually up in the air. And, you know, there's this deep space below it. And all those people are still standing on that wing. And so it's definitely an uneasy space.
Again, I love the painterly qualities in this. I love what she's doing with the paintbrush to capture, like, the background. She captures the atmosphere with her brush strokes and with the blur and with letting paint be paint and mineral spirits be mineral spirits. And you're going to see watercolor be watercolor.
Totally.
So,
and, you know, we did mention earlier that Barbara's sense of humor, which we haven't quite gotten to yet, and we will, you know, really plays a key role in some of this work. So, you know, we're like I said, that journey from point A to point B, we're going to have a lot of stops along the way, and this just happens to be one of those stops. Now, I have some other justification for my thoughts on the dreamscape, you know, and the fact that maybe these aren't just allegorical paintings, but that there is something that is going on in the subconscious or in, you know, in somewhere deeper down in the psychology of all of this, and we'll get to that. But let's move on to another. One more with the plane and people on the wings of the plane.
And again, there's the clueless, but we look at that as utter danger.
Right. Right. All right. So what do we have in terms of what's the next? Do we have Darkness on the Edge of Town series?
We do. Hold on. Let me just get over there for a moment. So that.
Oh, you want to go to that one?
Well, actually, I think that might be where that one's. Nope, that one's not from that one. Bear with us for a moment.
A lot of material to look at.
So much material. That might be that one, but
That's
don't
what I'm
think
thinking.
so.
Oh, that's much later.
That's much. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's just kind of
Let's look
move.
at some of
Let's
these.
move to some of these,
Okay.
because now, you know, now we're less direct in our approach to this kind of uneasy feeling, this kind of nightmarish feeling, or this kind of, you know, like dueling kind of scenario. But I do love what's going on here, right? You've got this. I love the way that magenta line on that green tennis court just jumps out and sort of fights that really dark upper space hiding the fence, and the chair, right? The referee's chair.
Yes.
Remember what we said about Alan Wexler and the fact that chairs in architecture kind of are a stand-in for a human because they have that notion of scale. It's like that's the one figure in the piece, right? In a weird kind of trapped, almost unmoving kind of way. U.S. Open, after all have left. Yeah, that's about to. Isn't that happening right now, or is that about to go on? I think the U.S. Open is. We're very near to that. But yeah. I love how the magenta line also becomes a form of its own and floats above the green space.
Yes.
They're not even attached to one another.
They aren't. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So let's keep going. A lot of really interesting complementary color relationships in these too as well, right? Of course, the red-green, we've got the orange-blue, and
colors.
Yeah, she
Hot
really
and cold.
she really understands this kind of this color relationship. But then there's this, if you think about it, even as a color study, right? Like an abstract sort of color study, making the eye kind of do its thing. And then there's a school bus, which is, I mean, I've always had that nightmare. So my school bus when I was a kid, we used to live at the top of a very steep hill. And there's an ice storm. And we slid to the bottom of the hill in the bus. And so, this one for me is kind of like, recalls that.
Yeah.
Not that that makes a difference here or there, but this one's got something for me. But, we keep going through all of these precarious situations, these impossible situations. There is a bit of, weirdly, there's a bit of humor there. It's like,
there is.
There's a guy in a suit and a cherry picker reading a paper.
And when you look at the title, this one's entitled Sunday Paper,
Right.
2009.
Right.
One thing she does that I've noticed, she uses understatement to highlight her humor. Like when you think about it, the painting's name is Sunday Paper. That's like such a nice barb of an understatement. And it's just such a great emphasis on the subject material. Yeah.
I kind of feel like that when I used to read the Sunday paper. It gave me that kind of feeling.
I believe last year
it was like an escape.
That.
It was like,
You're on the edge. Yeah.
All right.
Move on.
Let's move on. Let's get to some stuff that's very different.
Okay.
Very
so
different.
Let me pull up this.
This is the Nightmare series, right?
This is, and it's a German word that I cannot pronounce.
Okay, let me see.
It's Albtraum. So this is it translates to nightmares in German. This one's called Little Pink Houses. 60 by 48 inches, 2011 to 2012.
Okay, wait. That confirms my, so I had a theory. I didn't realize this was called Little Pink Houses, but I had a theory. I had a theory that Barbara's using a certain amount of music reference in these works. So of course there's a whole series we haven't even gotten to yet, and we will get to them, called Darkness on the Edge of Town, which is a Bruce Springsteen album, and we'll get into that. But then Little Pink Houses?
Yeah. Well, she makes a lot of references to pop culture too, which we haven't touched on as well.
Which we will. And we're really creeping up on 9 o'clock, so we gotta crank.
We gotta go.
We gotta crank here.
Yeah.
But
I love this. This is such a nightmare of the house in the middle of the storm. And I love, again, the paint becomes paint. She uses paint and what it just does to emulate what a storm would do.
Right. So the paint kind of becomes that whole, the paint becomes the storm.
It does.
Yeah.
And you could see the energy in there. You could see her furiously rubbing out things and letting it drip and getting some of her anxieties physically out on the canvas. But it also gives the viewer anxiety looking at it because, oh my gosh,
Right.
There's a house in the middle of the storm.
So Bujaz says the moodiness reminds me of Stanley Donwood's work, which I just pulled up over here on the other computer. And I'm not going to be able to get that into this show. But I can completely see that, actually, especially some of the controlled brush linearity in some of the prints, which in this case is very graphical in Stanley Donwood's work. And in Barbara's work, it's a little bit more painterly, but they have similarities in the way they layer, in the way the directionality of the stroke works. 63 says, no, not JCM, reference to John Cougar Mellencamp. And Ben says, how did they get those blues so vivid? Well, that's all about how much you want to spend on paint.
Yes.
Right? Because, obviously the better the paint, the more pigment you've got. And the ground you're working on sometimes actually contributes to that, right? The way in which you're sort of backing that with just the right amount of light can help to push that through. So let's keep moving. Should we do another one in the Nightmare series? But then we got to keep going.
Yep, that's fine. So this is another example. Again, we're seeing how she lets the material be the material, but in other areas she's really focusing on detail. So she's got tight control in some areas, and then she just lets it go in other areas.
Yeah. All right, let's do collars because we got to move, and I keep saying that, but
so much. So she did this series. This is actually called Painting series. So what she did was she went into an art museum. She was in the Brooklyn Art Museum, and she did studies of the old Dutch masters and portraiture. She said when she was going through art school in the 70s and 80s, she thought it was kind of so uncool that she would see people in the museum painting portraits and stuff like that. But as she matured and grew, she appreciated that. So that was something that she did for about 2 years. She focused on these paintings. As you could see, she'd go in front of the painting, she'd start developing it. She had some really great commentary on what she was doing. To think that she was painting a portrait of somebody that was long gone and passed away, it actually, and this is not a good example of what I'm going to say, but the last one was, okay, so she imagined that the person was dead, and then she could see like the under stuff, you know, the elements of mortality. Yeah.
Oh.
And she does use underpainting to guide her quite a bit in some of her artwork.
Sure, you can see that.
But you can almost see the elements of a skull and structure and stuff like that in some of this. It's almost like an infrared. It reminded me of the Fragonard painting when we look at young girl reading, and they've done those studies with the x-ray, and then they can see the underpainting underneath it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what this was reminding me of, but she was alluding more to the tradition of painting, to these people being long gone and painting their portraits as such and recognizing that.
And I love the way that she continues to use her the liquidity of the paint and the solvent, or if it's acrylic, you know, whatever, whether it's water or medium, but they kind of swim. They kind of emerge out of a kind of ethereal kind of space, right? And so if they are long gone, I love how they kind of, it's like chiaroscuro, but rather than emerging out of darkness in chiaroscuro, they emerge out of something much more psychological. That color lives not as physical space between something that's well lit and something that's not, but they live as this kind of like other space inside your emotions, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was just popping around because 63 was talking about, very cool, a little bacon, referencing Francis Bacon. I popped over.
And she does reference a long tradition of artists, just as we've seen the past couple artists that we looked at. Like, this is someone who obviously knows her art history. She does do renditions on this theme. So when she was doing this series in the museum, and she was really focusing on these old Dutch masters, she was kind of growing intrigued by the collars, and you see that come, these old Elizabethan sort of collars with the grooves in it, and she was really interested in the shape and the design, and she starts going off on it. Now, the history of the collars, what they denoted was that the collar actually was a symbol of aristocracy or socioeconomic status. The larger the collar, the more well-placed the person was in society. It was a status symbol.
My collar's bigger than yours.
Yes. But it's interesting to see how some of these grow and grow. And at first you see them like at a normal size, but then they start morphing and they almost become humorous because they start taking over the person and they take over the head, and you see heads becoming engulfed in the collars. And it's almost like I can visualize her running away with this theme.
Oh, Sculptore's here. Hi, Jim. Nice to see you. Yeah, these are some of my favorites in here, actually. This form, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but we did a quick little ad for this week's show where we did a time lapse of us prepping for the show, and for a moment you can see Terri trying to make a folded Elizabethan collar, which she was going to wear.
I was going to, and then I was like,
It just didn't work out. They're hard to make.
They are hard to make. They're hard to make well.
Yeah, I mean, you made a decent one, but then it becomes like its own, like now it's like an alien spaceship.
So she starts exploring the shape and what it can do. It feels like it's a chandelier and now it's a spaceship. She looks at other relevant forms that we see, like umbrellas and ribbon candy and stuff like that, because that also looks like collars. She starts getting very playful with
Oh.
that one motif. And
Yeah.
we see it over and over again.
And then the variation
evolution.
kind of goes to a complete abstraction on some of them. I mean, we can go all day on
All
these. I mean, here it is
day.
again
Like,
as some
it's
kind
so
of alien ship
fantastic.
coming down on, pedestrians on a street. Here's another sort of that kind of ethereal kind of blue-green space when the collar is kind of like taken over. It's funny, the collar as a symbol of, the aristocracy is similar to the necktie today on some level of the business person, right? Both of which weirdly choke the individual,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
really are
It's around the neck.
it's a
Yes,
restriction.
It is.
And these collars got so big, they became like these impossible spaces. It was almost like a platter
They
for
would
your
get
head.
Stifled.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like a platter
Yeah.
for your head. And
It
she does a
is.
great job of sort of like,
Does. And her colors, that underpainting with those bright colors,
oh my
some of
God,
it
they're
comes through.
insane.
And
They're insane. They're
Yeah.
gorgeous.
that's the ribbon candy one right under
that's-
it. Yeah.
This one?
No, up. That green one.
This one?
Yeah, that's the one where you could see like that ribbon candy
Oh, yeah,
feeling
yeah,
to
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
So they're great, the collar series.
I love these.
Yeah.
I'm just going to pop through a couple more really quickly and to just show the range with which, and this is a beautiful thing, especially when we're talking about this notion of an artist's practice and when something really grabs you and you have to sort of go through all these iterations of a thing until you've completely explored it, until you've completely worked it in every possible angle, right? And I love it when an artist does this. And sometimes artists get bored. Some artists are one and done, right? They make a piece, it has a particular look with particular materials, it does a particular thing, they're on to the next thing. And then there are other artists that really do a great job of focusing, and maybe focus is a bad word because that suggests that people that don't do this are not focused, and I don't think that's necessarily true. But I feel like that when we iterate like this, I think there's a lot of really incredible discovery that takes place.
Yeah.
Let's start getting
So
into some of those pop
beautiful.
culture references because
Okay.
I think
We gotta talk about
we're
these.
going to a good place. I promise.
There's a couple of themes that she's explores quite a bit, and this was one of them. This was, I believe, her window series.
Real quick, Christina McKinnon says, God, I love this work. I'm deeply inspired. Good.
Yes.
Good.
I always feel like, it's a good painter when you want to go out and start painting right away. And she's one of those people that makes me want to paint.
Yeah.
And want to create.
And Christina, since your Instagram, at Barbara Friedman on Instagram, follow her. Her work is just, she's
So good.
Yeah. All right. So this is the window series.
I believe so. I might be wrong on that. I'm just pulling it up real quick. Hold on one second. But anyway, you see some recurring characters in her
Do you want me to grab a couple of those?
Yeah, you can just scroll through a couple of them. So some of these series are going to actually overlap, I think, because a lot of them we're going to see some pop culture references. She does allude to different fairy tale figures.
We're going to see Gumby.
We're going to see Gumby.
We're going to see
Gulliver's
from Gulliver's Travels.
We're going to see Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different characters that keep coming into her paintings and having a place in there. We're going to see some Humpty Dumpty.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, again, I don't know where to start with
And,
this one, but this is
when you
awesome.
start to think about all of these references. All right, so first of all, let's add up what we're looking at. And we're going to look at, hold on, let me just pull up one real quick so you can see it. We're going to see Gumby. Right? I mean, talk about a difference from where we've been. We're going to see Gumby. We're going to see Humpty Dumpty. We're going to see Gulliver's Travels. We're going to see Pinocchio, right? Okay, so why these? Why these? And I think there's a number of different layers that I'm sort of thinking about when it comes to these choices. First of all, if you've ever watched Gumby, like actually watched it, not just bought some of the fun rubber toys and some of the merchandise that's out there, but actually watched it, it is a colossally screwed up animation, right? It is so strange. And so it really goes far into the psychology, I think, of what's... Gumby's just a very strange place to be.
Yes.
Yeah. but also very dreamlike.
Yeah.
Right, in the way that scene shifts happen, the cut
Right.
scenes. So, all right, so you got Gumby, right?
Right.
And then Gulliver's Travels, of course, is like another kind
Yeah.
of really impossible kind of
Yeah.
fairy tale dreamscape. And then, you know, we talk about Humpty Dumpty. And I when my daughter was really into Humpty Dumpty, like she didn't know why, but she just loved the story of Humpty Dumpty. I'm like, what is this about? What is Humpty Dumpty? It turns out, all right, so Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. Well, an Eggman? This makes no sense. He's symbolic, or at least this is the theory, that Humpty Dumpty is symbolic of a cannon that was used in a war, a massive cannon. And it was actually a brutal war instrument. And when it was finally knocked off of the wall that it sat on, it was broken. And it could not be reused. And at that point, the people that used Humpty Dumpty as a war machine were overtaken, right? And so that's what's weird is this fairy tale refers to something much darker.
Oh, much darker.
As so many do.
Yes.
Right? Like Ring Around the Rosie
Right.
and the Plague. There's so many like rhymes and things that we use in kids' stories.
Yes.
That are so dark.
Fairy tales are frightening.
I know.
They really are.
And so when we look at Barbara's paintings, and I'm seeing those things in here, not only just the literal references to the stories, but the way she handles them. There's like, you know, yeah, they're playful. And I get a little bit of a smile,
And there's,
you know.
Yep, there's humor.
You know, I get a little bit of a smile, but then I'm like, I get a little afraid.
Yeah.
Like I get a little bit like, oh, that's, you know, something's going on there.
Yeah. But one thing
Carolyn Thau says, but most childhood stories are fucked up.
This is true. I will say, like with some of these characters, because they all have a journey too. Like if you think of Pinocchio, he just wants to be a real boy, you know. So, but he's got this thing with pervasive lying. So, you think of Gulliver's Travels. That's another one where it's kind of like a journey. Gumby is a journey. He usually goes on different adventures all over the place.
Well, can we talk a little bit about Pinocchio for a second, who
let's
wants to be a regular boy,
Yeah.
but then has this problem with lying?
Yes.
Okay, so Pinocchio shows up in a lot of these works.
Yeah.
Right? And Barbara's got a series of paintings, which we've kind of been flying through all different series, but Barbara's got a series of paintings called Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a Bruce Springsteen album, right? And that Bruce Springsteen album came after Born to Run, a massive sort of push for Bruce Springsteen's career. Bruce Springsteen had a lot of fame after Born to Run, got in a little bit of trouble after Born to Run, and Darkness at the Edge of Town is a much less sort of popular album than Born to Run was. Now, what are the quintessential songs on Darkness at the Edge of Town? Okay, so number one, Prove It All Night, Badlands, The Promised Land, right? And I had to go, I mean, I know that I can sing some of these songs when I'm driving in the car, you know, like, but I had to go look up the lyrics to be sure, because I started thinking about those, and you cannot ignore this reference. All right, so let's see. We've got Badlands, right? And in Badlands, I got the lyrics right here. Actually, I'm looking at them. And in Badlands, I was looking for one key word, and that was the word dream. Right? Because Bruce Springsteen uses the word dream across so many lyrics in this particular album. Like, it's like Psychedelic Furs. They can't stop using the word footsteps in all their songs,
true.
right? So it's like, anyway, that's a reference that didn't need to be made. But anyway, so he talk about a dream, try to make it real. You wake up in the night with with a fear so real. You spend your life waiting for a moment that just don't come. Well, don't waste your time waiting. Okay, that's from Badlands, right? Same album. We go over to Prove It All Night, right? And this is a song I think that relates to Pinocchio, because this song is about it's about forbidden love, right? I think it's about an affair, but there's like this idea that, you know, you're lying, you're cheating, and he talks about it in one of the verses. He's like, baby, tie your hair back in a long white bow. Meet me in the fields behind the dynamo. You hear their voices telling you not to go. They made their choices and they'll never know. what it means to steal, to cheat, to lie, what it's like to live and to die, to prove it all night. So there are these really, really cool, like deep, dark relationship spaces that live on the edge of dreams. I love this reference to darkness on the edge of town. And then, of course, Promised Land. And I'm going to stop making these references in 1 second. But he goes on to talk about dreams in this as well. And I'm going to have to find it because I can't put a Post-it note on a computer screen and have it make any sense. But blah, 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 blah. It's here. There it is. So he's like, well, there's a dark cloud rising from the desert floor. I packed my bags and I'm heading straight into the storm. Gonna be a twister to blow everything down. That ain't got the faith to stand its ground. Blow away the dreams that tear you apart. Blow away the dreams that break your heart. Blow away the lies that leave you nothing but lost and brokenhearted. The lies. He's talking about the lies. He's talking about the dreams. He's talking. Carolyn Thou's like, or drugs. No, but Bruce Springsteen, he's nailing this space that we are fearful of. And we, and Bruce Springsteen was the quintessential American critic.
Yes.
He was the quintessential American critic. That's why I love it when a politician uses Born in the USA to support their campaign, because it's like, you idiot. That's a song that's critical of the American way. And Bruce Springsteen knew exactly how to get there. And so Barbara's paintings are utilizing these pop culture references that, it's not, they definitely have roots in our childhoods, but they're weird references to our pasts, and they have a kind of nightmarishness to them that's just like, really interesting. And then the Bruce thing, and then the little pink houses.
But yes,
I mean,
yeah.
Anyway, all right, that was Todd's rant for tonight. Sorry about that.
That was great.
You get my point, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Gumby.
Well, this actual painting that we're seeing here, this has a reference to some of her collar paintings. I feel like I'm totally changing the vibe right now to that awesome energy, but
no, it's good.
She does mention her husband, the family comes from Greece, and they visited houses there quite a bit. The houses, the roofs would often collapse in, and she was looking at the style of shingles, and she was noticing that it was similar to the collars, so that intrigued her a little bit since she's very much into that form. But then the way that the cross sections were on top, and she says this in many interviews, you can go to her website online. There's a whole bunch of interviews that are there with her, but she started imagining Gumby splayed out. And one thing that we do see in some of her images is this vision of characters being splayed out, like the legs are splayed. Yes. Like that one. But we see it in multiple forms. Even with one of the collar paintings, we see a baby doll figure with the legs splayed. So it's almost like this position of vulnerability
right
there.
Right. But I also think that, I like that position of vulnerability. I think that's key. And when we think about Gulliver and Gulliver's travels sort of being tied down in the city street, I mean, of course, that's what we're looking at here, right? But then when we take Gumby and put Gumby in that space, it somehow is a translator.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure if that's the right word.
Yes.
But there's a translation that takes place. And remember we talked a little bit about the oblivious nature of the people walking along the edge.
Yes.
There's an obliviousness to the Gumby character in these as well. And then, you see these like 3/4 aerial views of these cityscapes. And here's another one, but with Pinocchio now, right? And so I think that these characters function as these overwhelming presences in our lives that, you might only be able to see from the 30,000-foot view, but you don't see in your day-to-day existence, because Pinocchio's nose here almost becomes the boulevard. His head almost becomes the sun that shines.
Actually, his nose seems to be picking a lock there, if you really look, which is really interesting to me. Doesn't it seem like it's doing that?
It does. It
But
does.
I'm getting a little too literal with it.
No,
but
no, no. I think that's actually fine. I think that's fine. That's kind of interesting. But I'm missing some of the comments here. Carolyn Thou's like Alice in Wonderland. Ben's favorite tonight is Pinocchio. He's really liking the Pinocchios.
And actually, this whole darkness on the edge of town kind of series does have these figures that are strapped down in these vulnerable positions, almost like they've been captured or caught, and there is that oblivious nature on their faces or their countenances.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm surveying it overall, and you can see that, like with a lot of these.
I'm moving a little bit ahead of you just to kind of move through some of these.
Sure.
You know, I love the way Pinocchio becomes, and Gumby, they both become these kind of really painterly icons. So let's make a quick reference back to Alan Wexler from last week, because I think this is also interesting. Alan Wexler did a couple of pieces, the scaffolding pieces on the Seder dishes, the vitrine pieces, and we talked about the monumentalization of a thing, right? So place a thing on a scaffolding or place a thing in a vitrine, and you instantly give it a kind of, you reset the value of that thing. You apply importance.
Yes.
Okay, so weird, and I got to thinking about this with painting. Painting automatically does that, right? Like, think about a painted portrait of someone who, especially now, right? There's something so much more powerful. The painting is imbued with a kind of specialness that gives what's happening in the painting a certain power. I'm not quite saying this correctly, but I feel like somehow the magic of the paint, the viscosity of the paint, the translucency of the paint, all of those things kind of come together to create this magical sensation, for lack of a better word, that makes that thing more special than, say, the graphics on this can. Okay? So what Barbara's doing in this is she's also, especially in some of the paintings like the one we're seeing here, and in this one, she is imbuing a pop culture iconic figure with this kind of Renaissance level specialness, this importance, this do you understand what I mean?
Value.
There's a value.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of an interesting play, and I don't consider it to be ironic at all. I think it's kind of like, I think she's trying to tell us something about the ways in which these forms that are typically overlooked can function, which is really why we do that with anything, right? And so, you know, these as paintings leave the realm of Gumby as the cute rubber dollar store figure that you can get in the impulse buy aisle, and it elevates this Gumby-like figure into something that is far greater, right? And so I go back now and I look at a Gumby video, and I haven't watched those since I was a kid, but I looked at some of them this week, and I was all of a sudden like thinking about them through the context of Barbara's paintings, and they had now this other, like I was thinking about Gumby differently.
Yeah.
You know, so I like that.
Yeah, I do too.
Gulliver meets Gumby. I mean, that's not the title of this painting, but
No.
I'm thinking about it in that way.
Right. Well, she also uses a lot of other famous pieces in art in her paintings.
Oh yeah, can we get to that one?
Like the foot of a famous statue, like I believe it was hold on.
I'm not rushing you.
Okay. Constantine's foot, excuse me. I just had to look it up because I'm like, Constantinople, and then I'm thinking they might be giants. I don't know where that came from, but anyway, she used it's almost gone, all right? So anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, I'm saving a little bit for the toast. But you see elements of these other pieces of artwork come into some of these paintings.
So let's pull up some of these other pieces, because this painting right here is actually really a kind of interesting segue from what Terri was just talking about.
This is, and I'm trying to pull it up on my screen as well. And she actually gave a talk not too long ago with the Artists Talk on Arts, and she was actually explaining this particular series of paintings right here.
And a lot of the content that, like, I feel like I always need to write my my sources, right? And so, well, a lot of what we're going to talk about here is revealed to us through this video, and it was a really interesting talk that she gave. But how should we do this?
Okay, well, I can talk about this a little bit. So this particular painting is called Hard Rain. It's oil on linen. It was painted between a number of years, 2005 to 2020. So it was something that she kept revisiting. It's 62 inches by 84 inches, oil on linen. Pay attention to the ladies in the balcony, because that's something that she was talking to. You see them on both sides. You see a gentleman hanging. These women are very figurative in their execution. They're on the balcony. They've got that hot orange hair. There's this big, almost allusion to a Roman kind of structure in the background, maybe the Colosseum, who knows? It's something like that. So that's where we're starting.
Okay, and then do you want to so there's a couple of paintings that sort of repeat this theme.
Repeat this theme. We see the women again, and she even called it at one point like a jury of women. She was really intrigued with this grouping of women, with the balconies, the way that they were positioned, the way that they seemed to be communicating with each other.
Right, and then, you know, again, we see it again, and then we start to see where this reference came from when we look at this piece.
Yes. So this is actually, and I'm trying to pull up the painting here. This painting is called Renaissance Penis. So this was oil on linen in 2020, 51 inches by 44 inches, and it's actually taken from a study on a well-known painting of Saint Sebastian.
Which has been done many, many times, the subject of Saint Sebastian, but in particular, this particular painting. Now, I'm really zoomed in here.
This is a detail of the painting.
And this is not Barbara Friedman's painting. This is the reference that she had seen this painting and was inspired by it. Let's back out a little bit so you can see the whole painting.
So she saw this particular painting and she was intrigued by that one detail. And she began to paint that detail in various forms. She really explored it over and over again. She removed the loincloth, she stripped it off. She was fascinated with the positioning of these women. They're right at the groin of this saint, actually this man. So she just thought that was a theme that she explored, and like she usually does, she explores it in many, many different ways.
And, you know, like with Renaissance paintings and the early birth of orthogonals and representational space, or illusional space, I should say, inside of a painting, you know, directional cues in Renaissance paintings are hugely important. Well, you know, typically all orthogonal lines will point to the baby Jesus's head, or all orthogonal lines will point to some other significant element of the story. And then from that point you depart and you move through the painting, the eye does its thing, and you tell a story in one image. Well, in Saint Sebastian here, all orthogonal lines seem to point right towards his groin. And it is not a coincidence that the jury of women that Barbara Friedman sort of assigns a name to, because it's not technically called that, but that is her word for it, happens to be at the level of said groin, and they are all kind of like talking about that. And so she actually, you know, as this kind of judge and jury is out there, it's she
kind of assigns them power.
She does.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a serious power there.
Yeah.
And so in, you know, her representations of that, you know, we see them used in a lot of different contexts.
In a lot of different contexts with a lot of different themes.
So
you do often see these characters hanging off the ledge of something, and the women are kind of like, do we help them out?
Well, here's the boy, the liar, who can't stop lying, kind of hanging on as they look over at him. Sort of like Saint Sebastian, who's sort of being, you know, crucified and speared and pierced, you know, as they look over at him, and it's sort of like, he's like, I'm telling you everything I need to tell you to get back up on this ledge, but my nose is growing longer, and
Yeah,
they're
it's
looking at him
almost
like,
stabbing her in the eye.
no, you're gonna get knocked off this ledge in
Yeah.
a second. But I love this kind of iterative kind of approach to a subject that just grips her, and it just like the collars, right? So,
Yeah,
all right.
I just wanted to reiterate again, that was from Artist Talk on Art. I guess it's episode 62. It was done on the 21st of June. It had multiple artists in it, just to kind of cite the source there. Barbara Friedman, Jan Medina, Patrick Martinez, Tony Silver, Delarive. It's definitely worth taking a look at because she talks a lot about.
I'll put that
many,
in
many
the
sources.
YouTube video, links down below after this is put up on YouTube. Let's get to this last series
I
we want to
love
visit
this.
because they are so much fun.
Let me get over here.
I love these paintings. We're talking about, you know, we said we were going to get the sense of humor. I'm going to start popping through these a little bit faster though. So because we're not going to talk about each one.
Oh, let me get
This painting. I love this painting.
I love this painting too. I just have to get there.
You'll get there.
So this is in her most recent series of paintings. So we're kind of caught up in time. It's called Finding Lost Creatures in Strange Places. Often she talks about doing the underpainting and allowing the painting to emerge from there. Sometimes it obscures it, sometimes she allows it to come through. So this is one of my favorite paintings from that series right here. This is called Mouthful. It's oil on wood. It was actually painted in 2018, 24 by 24.
Yeah. Here we go. Let's keep going with the
There's a whole bunch
sharks.
of them, so I'm just going to keep scrolling. So I guess we can just kind of keep popping through. Some of these are oil paintings. It seems like most of these are. She also does some watercolors on some of these. I'm wondering if any. These are all the oil paintings, though.
There's been a lot of like great white shark attack stories in the media over the last several years, probably due to some kind of like climate thing that's happening. But we've seen that. Also, there's also this kind of really interesting reference to Jaws, another pop culture story that has nightmarish roots, you know, about a beautiful place that seemingly has no problems. And then this, you know, this shark practically swallows everything in its path. But I think it sort of lines up really nicely with her theme. Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
I love the platypus.
This one is awesome. I'm just trying to get to that page. This one is He Gave Up, Oil on Linen, 2020. So she actually, I believe she just kind of worked with these obscured shapes, and then the figures or the creatures rose from them. These aren't the watercolors that I was thinking of that we were going to pull up to. She does do that with watercolor with some of her artwork, where she allows the drops of pigments to blend with the water, and she allows it to do what it's going to do, and then she starts to see something, and then she starts developing it in certain areas, and then you start to see the more literal creature rise out of the pigment.
Yeah. And you know, what I gotta really stress here is this is so hugely important for what we try to do in bringing this show to you. And I think Barbara Friedman is a really great example to illustrate this point. And that is, number one, there is an inherent kind of call and response in the process of making that should take place, right? Your intention, what you set out to make, can easily be altered or changed, and you should allow it to be. There's a flexibility in this. Number two, I'm not saying it's not serious work, and it is serious work, but it's not taken too seriously. There's a sense of humor involved in some of this. She allows, you know, a kind of fun, playful element to sometimes crop up. And I think that's fantastic. I love that part of this. This is like a weird kind of, I can't tell if that is a cat in hell.
This piece is called Shit Show. It was painted in 2021. It's
the way you
oil
said
on
that
linen.
is so beautiful.
It is, and I love it. I mean, you're staring at that and you're like, wow. But I love it. And then there's like some kind of coven going on with other creatures emerging from the shadows, and then the paints, and just allowing paint to be paint. But then again, that hyper focus on one little area. Yeah.
And if we talk about Renaissance painting cues, there are just so many references that she's making with the color that guide the eye. And so let's talk about that, right? Because they're not as obvious as orthogonal lines in a Renaissance painting, but you can't help but look directly at that vibrant blue collar in that field, which then leads to that paw thing, which is pulling this poor dog over the edge, sliding down the back to the secondary blue reference, which sort of seems to frame what is that really excessively painted orifice. I mean, there's just a lot going on in this that's both funny and repulsive and
Curious.
and curiously narrative at the same time.
Yeah.
I gotta move on.
I love this one. I'm just pulling it up real quick.
Ben's reminding me, Jaws, the town was Amity. Am Schmidt is here.
Zeno's Paradox, Oil on Linen.
Hi, Am. She loves the painting of the dog.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had to move on from that. I was going to dark places.
That one will lead you in a dark place. I
Oh,
think.
as it should,
It
and I
should,
love
right?
that. I love that. Tell us about this one real quick.
I'm sorry. This is called Zeno's Paradox, Oil on Linen, 2020, 44 inches by 37 inches.
You really start to see how some of her initial responses to paint lead to developing the imagery.
Yeah.
And they're becoming, they still remain in that sort of dreamscape, nightmarescape, ambiguous space. They still sort of maintain that kind of pop culture reference, but it might not be as direct as Gumby or Pinocchio. But at the same time, they kind of have this, there's a funny, nightmarish play on what might be cute or playful happening here. And they're not cute or playful.
No. They're quite
Like this one.
serious. I like this one too.
I thought of Val Civilli when I saw this one.
Yes, I could see why. This one is called Mouse King.
Mouse King.
44 by 37 inches. This is also oil on linen. And again, I like how you could see brush strokes. I like how it's like really diluted in some areas, and you can kind of see the canvas or the linen underneath it.
And at the end of the day, the only thing that references this kind of, other than the title, the only thing that references anything here is this sort of hyper-realistic eyeball thing that got brought into this otherwise abstract composition.
Yeah.
Right? If those weren't there, this would be a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And she sort of, I almost want to say she might be poking fun at the culture of painting, people looking at painting, right? I swore I'd never do this, but I'm going to do it.
Go ahead.
All right, because the beer was pretty heavy. Even 63 said that. There was somebody in my undergrad, which will remain unnamed, who every time they saw painting, I think I've said this in a previous episode, didn't I?
You might have. I'm not quite sure what you're going to say.
Every painting she looked at, she was like, I see a chicken. Drove me bananas. Because she couldn't not see the chicken in the painting, and this is kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of like, I don't know, satirical approach to that sort of thing, which I kind of 8 messages were deleted by the moderator. Oh, you're not spamming. All right, don't be offended, Em.
Yeah.
The moderator's got a little, the moderator's sensitive, right? Yeah, the moderator's sensitive. But anyway, it's kind of a funny poke on that.
It is.
And here's another example of that where you can...
At this point, though, it's almost like she sees something and then she starts putting the details in to make it emerge.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And I think that's actually great.
Yeah.
Because she's taking... What is it I'm trying to say? She is pulling from areas that are taboo in painting, right? Like, she's painting Gumby. Yeah. She's painting Pinocchio.
Yeah.
These are kind of those pop culture references. I won't say for...
Those aren't serious.
They're not serious.
Yeah.
They're not for serious painters, but you know what?
Gumby?
God, she does some great shit with those paintings.
She really does.
Right? And so here we are again. She's pulling from a taboo in painting where it's like, oh, I'm this liquid abstract painter, and you're not supposed to see a mouse.
Yeah.
But she's like, I see a mouse, and I'm going to make that a mouse, and you're going to love that it's a mouse, and I'm going to embrace...
But the mousy thing isn't the thing that you love the most about it. You love the striations that are emerging with the from that central part that emulate the hair. But how is she doing that? That's not brushstroke. Some of it's like negative space. Some of it is the mineral spirits acting in conjunction with the paint splatters. That's the stuff that you're really drawn to, although you might not know it. But that's the magic of her paintings.
Am is laughing at what's going on. She's like, it's icky. So anyway, we are, this painting is actually, I think, at the top end of her most recent stuff.
I believe it is.
In the website.
Yeah.
And just to sort of reiterate, if you go take a look at barbarafriedmanpaintings.com, you can check out her work further. Her Instagram handle is let me see if I can get that to come up. Where are you? You're not responding. Respond. There we go. At Barbara Friedman on Instagram. Definitely follow her. I'm telling you, Barbara's almost too big for this show, just in terms of the volume of work, the diversity of work, the trajectory of the work. I really get excited about some of the stuff, though, when we talk about it. I can't,
Well, I feel like the past couple artists have been so big, and I feel like she's one more to add to that.
Am's like, no, this one, not Sleeping Tonight. This is killer. I know. Yeah. It's so bizarre.
So bizarre and so beautiful.
All right. So anyway, this was good.
This was good.
Barbara Friedman, we love your work. We really enjoyed this. We're hoping that maybe one day down the road, we get you to come on the show and talk about this further, because I think it would be really interesting to field some questions.
There's so many questions. I want to know your roots. That's really what I want to know.
She might not want to tell you that.
She might not want to tell me.
But it's about
too invasive.
It's about the painting, and oh God, so I'm sitting here staring at the lyrics to The Promised Land from Bruce Springsteen, because I had that up when I went on my rant about Darkness at the Edge of Town. Sculptori is like, she would be a great guest.
She would.
I agree. I love Barbara. I only met her the one time. I feel like she would be so much fun to have on. And at the risk of assuming some of the lyrics to these songs might have a place in these, maybe we'll sort of close with one last quote from The Promised Land, which is kind of interesting. But I've done my best to live the right way. I get up every morning and go to work each day. But your eyes go blind and your blood runs cold. Sometimes I feel so weak I just want to explode. Explode and tear this whole town apart. Take a knife and cut this pain from my heart. Find somebody itching for something to start. Now, if I was as confident in my Bruce Springsteen voice as I am in my Louis Armstrong voice, I would have sung that. But no, because what are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Anyway, everybody, we really appreciate you watching tonight. We hope you enjoyed meeting Barbara Friedman in an indirect way through her work. We look forward to you. I didn't look up who's next week.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think next week is...
Hold on. Here's the part where she whispers the...
Okay.
Who is it? Who? Oh.
I think it is.
We're going to get pushed back on that.
We are going to get...
Next week is Fashion Week in New York.
It's Fashion Week.
Not necessarily Fashion Week on our show. However...
We're working on something.
We got an idea.
We do.
But I don't know. I'm trying to pull a veto.
To be fair, when we did fashion last time with Alexander McQueen, juxtaposed with Frida Kahlo.
Yeah, that was a good show.
That was a good show.
I don't know if we can do that again, though.
You never know. Fashion is art. I think we showed you that. Right? A little bit.
Episode 53 in the can.
It is.
Everybody, you guys have a great week. Don't forget, what makes a work of art bad? On Patreon. Go to our Patreon page and join. We'd love to have you in that conversation. Friday night, 8 p.m. Otherwise, we will see you, I can't say it, next Tuesday night. All right, everybody.
There you go.
Have a great evening. Cheers.
Cheers.